Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing in them, to die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep. To sleep perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in this sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There is the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear? To grunt and sweat under a weary life, but to the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns. It puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have, rather than fly to others we know not of. Thus conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sickled o'er with a pale cast of thought. And enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action. Hi guys, John Davis, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. I am here today with my wonderful co-host, the woman who's both beautiful on the inside and the out, the lovely Tamara Zoner. How are you today, Tamara?
I'm inspired, John. How are you?
I'm good. I love that speech, and I have never had the opportunity to do that speech on stage. I think that speech has so much depth to it that is just crazy. And when we started to talk about the idea of talking about the afterlife and what comes after we die, this came right to my mind, because this whole speech is designed around the idea of this person is depressed and doesn't commit suicide because he's afraid of what comes after death. He actually loses the action, and the actions, and thus conscience thus makes cowards of us all.
That's the line that stuck with me of
Yeah.
all of it. Yes.
Yeah, and the native hue of resolution, the color of our resolve, darkness or light. The native hue of resolution is sickled o'er. And the word sickled to me is like the impending doom or devil, because it's like the Grim Reaper's sickle with the pale cast of thought. Your thoughts of being negative. Really deep stuff, right? I love that. Always wanted to play Hamlet, but never got the chance because I was too big and bulky.
Well, maybe you must conceive of your own Hamlet.
Yeah, there you go. That's why I take this opportunity to spew it here online.
All right.
So we're talking about the afterlife today, and to me it's we've kind of touched on it in other episodes, and reincarnation and things of that nature. But we have this belief. What is the afterlife to you?
What is the afterlife to me? So, obviously everybody who's listened to at least the first episode knows we're both recovering Catholics. So I was raised with this, belief that the afterlife is heaven. If you're a good girl, right? If you're a good boy or a good girl, you get to go to heaven and everything is perfect and wonderful. But I don't really believe that necessarily. So what does come after life? I think that this is a question that can't be answered until we're there. And for me, coming to terms with that has been a process of faith, right? But differently from the average Christian or Catholic person would describe faith, of knowing that if I do my good work here on earth, then what comes after this life will either be an even better one, as we talked about in reincarnation, or perhaps there is a heavenly resting stop. But I don't believe that it is the end all be all. I don't think that we go to this, glistening place where everyone is young and beautiful and has everything they could ever want, which we're not wanting if we're in heaven, right? That
Right.
desiring for more goes away, I think. And it means that we're at peace finally. There is no longing or striving or reaching. We're simply finally just being, and that is a heavenly place. And then I think personally, since you asked, you're getting the
Mm-hmm.
long answer. Uh,
Well, I gave you the long intro, so you can give the long answer.
I feel so. I feel like there are several aspects, like, and it could be any one of these. If you're a good human, you can either go on to a next even better life, with maybe fewer really hard lessons to learn because you've done good learning, or you get to go to this like heavenly vacation for a while, and then maybe, and this is kind of where I feel like I'm going in the next after this life, is to be a guide for those who are in their earthly bodies, and to be that whisper in the wind, that hint of intuition, that gut feeling. It's to be someone's guide to kind of just make sure they're moving in the direction that will serve their highest good and the good of all those who are in and around them in their lives.
That makes perfect sense. And what I find interesting about the afterlife is that it's a concept. It's a concept, and our concepts are based upon our earthly beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I know when I think of my mother's passed away now, but when I think of my mother, I think of her in heaven with Jesus. And the reason I think that is because my mother devoted her life to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think my mother crossed over and had that experience because that's where her thoughts led her.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think it's going to be less draped in dogmatic clothing. That's the best way I can say it. The afterlife will be, I think it'll be more an awareness, an understanding. I know in different episodes I've talked about the moment when I was working with astral travel and I went out and a body and this other person was there and told me I wasn't supposed to be there yet.
Yeah.
And I often wonder whether that was a near-death experience, because I often wonder whether I was actually disconnecting from the physical form totally.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned me around and said, oh, you came a little too far.
Right.
You turn around.
Yeah, friend.
But what was so interesting about that moment from an experiential standpoint was not meeting the guy. It was the moment of suddenly being there and feeling like a child without a whole bunch of junk and just being in total awe, right? So I can imagine myself crossing over and being in total awe of what I'm experiencing. And do you know the last thing that Steve Jobs said on his deathbed?
Mm-mm.
He said he was there in his bed and he looked up and he went, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow," and he died.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So he saw something that was so amazing to him that it made him cry out, "Oh wow, oh wow," and he was so excited and happy. Right now, I have another interesting theory about dementia, Alzheimer's, things of that nature. I think that they are a slow retreat into the afterlife.
Okay.
And I'll give you an interesting example. My my second wife's great uncle. It's kind of a long way to get there, but second wife's great uncle. Uncle Lou was his name. He was a very nice man, very nice man. And he was slipping away into Alzheimer's. And they brought him to my wife's grandmother's house at the time and came in the house, and they're sitting there and I'm talking to Lou and Lou was like saying, yeah, and Dorothy was telling me in the car that blah 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 blah, and I didn't know who Dorothy was, right? And Jennifer's aunt Lois says Uncle Lou, Dorothy passed away 5 years ago, and he says, then who was that in the car, right? To me, I think he's seeing that consciousness of Dorothy here and now, because he's slowly retreating into that afterlife. I think that since science says that everything that we see is nothing but pure energy, and specifically a pure energy event, not even something solid, even the hand that you're holding in front of your face is a pure energy event. If that's the case, the only thing we truly are is our thoughts, our beliefs, our consciousness, and the native hue of resolution is sickled over by the pale cast of thought, right?
Yeah.
So our thoughts are going to show us our afterlife experience. My mom, I know full well, she went over there and she saw Jesus face to face. Know full well that. Now, do I really know that? Of course I don't know that, because I wasn't with her. I wasn't there. But I truly believe that that's what she saw, because that was her thought as she crossed over. We surround ourselves with the thought. I know when I cross over, I'll see my mom.
Right.
And
because
my
mom,
you
will.
I know I will. Right. I know that I will. I'll see my dad, and it'll be a weird experience, because I had a very nasty father. But so I think when I cross over, I think a couple things are going to happen. I look at the afterlife as, remember when we talked about reincarnation, we talked about that hub. We are our conscious center, and then there's all these other lives, and then there's an outer ring. I believe crossing over means you're stepping into that outer ring.
Okay.
And when you step into that outer ring, you step into full awareness. That's why they say, a lot of people say when they go into the afterlife, they have the life review that they have to go through.
Yes.
Right. And what's to me most interesting about the life review is they also say that they see the circumstances from the other person's point of view.
The person asking them, or
so in other words, if you're going across and you see an experience where you've wronged somebody,
oh, I see what you're saying.
You feel their feelings.
Okay.
All right. So you get to experience the whole process. So to me, that it literally is being here is learning, and going there is taking the exam, or at least revealing the answers to the exam. Whatever.
It's the assessment. It's the process.
The assessment. There you go. Much better way to say that.
I find that I want to just pause before we go on.
Go.
Just because what you said about, your thoughts being your reality, well, I'm paraphrasing, but I fully believe that what one believes is what will happen. So growing up, my little young mind, not understanding how only Catholicism could be correct. And I thought, well, that was one of the first things I rejected. And I thought, okay, there's this religion and that religion and that religion and that religion. And I could go on for the next 15 minutes saying that religion and this religion. What they think is going to happen must be what's going to happen for them.
Right.
It has to be.
Has to be.
It has to be. That's the only thing that could make sense for me.
Right. And what did Buddha say? What you think you become, you create your world. But I think you create your afterlife too.
You create your afterlife too.
But I think but here's the question that I would have to God, yada yada. It must be God's last name, God, yada yada.
The great whatever.
yeah. The Grand Poobah. How about that? That's from Flintstones. The Grand Poobah. My question would be is, do you cross over and experience what you think you're going to see, and then is it revealed to you that that's not what it really is? I mean, do you get the full awareness, or do you stay in your dogmatic veil?
Well, I don't think you could, though. Do you?
I don't think you could either.
Everything is unveiled when you cross over. That's my belief, right? Or what's the point?
I completely agree. I think going over, the idea of going over and my mom meeting Jesus, right?
Mhm.
My mom's a great example, because my mom meeting Jesus is what I totally expected her to see, right?
Mhm.
And I totally believe she probably saw that.
Mhm.
And then she has another awareness. Now, my mom being as devoutly Catholic as she was, I can't imagine, Catholics aren't really into psychics or mediums or any of that kind of thing. In fact, it's kind of against the rules
Mhm.
in a way. And, my mom has come back like 5 times now through a medium.
Okay.
And my mom has literally come back and said the things that we always wanted to hear, from my mom. And my dad came back and did the same thing
Okay.
through
Oh,
through a medium.
I remember that. So
Yeah.
when she came back, did you ask her, did you see JC? Did you guys hang? Have a cuppa? What?
We were in a live audience medium reading, so we
Mm,
couldn't get into depth.
that okay.
But we have actually often thought about hiring that medium to come in and sit with the whole family.
Clearly your mom's spirit trusts her.
Yeah, it was like that would be awesome, right? So we're debating that. We're thinking about doing that. Pay everybody chipping in and getting her to come in and sit with us for a little while and see what mom and dad have to say.
Oh, would you film it for Spirit Cafe?
Oh, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to my brothers and sisters about that, because I see. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure my brother. Well, my one brother would come at all,
Okay.
because he has gone real deep into Catholicism, and so I'm not. He's actually gone further than any of the rest of us did.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether he could see himself coming to that, and I
Mhm.
could totally see himself judging the rest of us for it.
Mhm.
So but I know, like, my sister Patty, she would be all over it, man. My sister Susan would be all over it. My sister, we call her Peachy, but her name is Jane. Um, she had her own medium experiences and psychic experiences. She in our family, she's the one who, um, she sees people after they died. And
Wow.
so, I mean, like she actually saw, was it my Aunt Dot, I think. My sister was driving down the road in Florida and looked over and saw my Aunt Dot standing on a corner, and she waved at her and got on a bus and left.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
And she died that day
Oh wow.
in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
My sister saw her in Florida. Right.
That's
And it's like,
amazing.
but she had all those kinds of experience. She had a lot. When my dad died, she said that she saw him looking in the window right after he died,
Oh
like at her
wow.
house. And yeah, yeah, it was
I
like,
mean, that would be just spooky.
it would. But she said she never felt scared by it. But you know, interesting. But
Well,
just
I would think like they're not ideally if a spirit is coming to say goodbye just by showing their presence.
right.
They're not coming to spook them, right?
And my dad, as hard of a life that I have with
Hmm.
my dad had a hard life. I mean, his father was a very bad alcoholic who died of cirrhosis of the liver very young. Um, Treated my dad like a narcissistic alcoholic would,
Hmm.
and my dad kind of carried that through his life, struggling with his own issues. Emotionally, became a narcissist, did all the
Hmm.
stuff, and I could totally see when he just shifted over to the afterlife, having a hard time letting go of here,
Okay.
because he wasn't a high vibrational thinker.
Hmm.
And I think to go to that next level, you've got to raise your vibration.
Yes,
Your
I agree.
vibration has to go.
I'm curious though, what do you think? So if we both agree that what you believe is what will happen for you, what about those people who don't believe in anything? What happens to them?
Well, I like atheists. Are you talking
Yeah.
about that? Okay, so I think that it's a very interesting question, because I think the first thing they see is blackness.
Mm,
Well, it's over, because that's what they believe,
okay. And there is
right?
nothing else.
There's nothing else.
Yeah.
But then I believe that it's revealed.
Okay. That
That's
would
it,
make
because
sense.
but that's hard. That's my belief, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be theirs. But I think that if they expect to see nothing, they'll see nothing at first. But just
Hmm.
like we just said earlier, my mom saw Jesus at first, and then everything else got revealed.
Hmm.
You know, so
Hmm.
she sees her Catholic crossover, and
Right.
it gets revealed. So I think the same thing would happen with atheists. But you know, what if you and I are wrong?
Right. I mean, who knows? None of us know.
Right? We can it can be like
We're just
over. All
guessing
right,
and
forget
speculating.
that. You know,
It
just
could be
gone.
black
Right.
for us. We don't know. It could just be
Right.
walking into a void or
Right.
floating or whatever
I
we
choose
do.
to believe in the light and the happiness stuff. So
Hmm. Well, and
that's
that's the gift of life, right?
right.
We get to make it up for ourselves. We get to make meaning however we want to. And you and I choose to make it happy and light, a positive experience, a growth experience, whereas other people choose to bring a lot of judgment and darkness to it. And so, I don't know, when we talk about heaven, I've said this before on different episodes, depending on our mindset, and if we are growth oriented and open hearted and open minded, then we can be experiencing heaven right here on earth. And the afterlife really doesn't even matter, honestly. I mean, there's curiosity around it, but I think when, what was that line again? The consciousness creates courage, or what?
Oh,
Like,
thus conscious makes cowards of us all.
makes cowards of us all. I think that that's a fascinating line that I really want to meditate on. And I think then that inspires an opportunity to then find your courage, the courage to simply stay open and curious, and like any kind of manifestation, staying unattached to the outcome. In
Right,
fact,
right. Well,
right?
you got to remember what else. What else Shakespeare said was, "There's nothing good nor bad, but thinking makes it so."
That. Yes.
So if we choose to think good, then we're going to experience good. If we choose to think bad, we're going to experience bad. We are the creator of our experience, in our opinion, right?
Hmm.
And if we're the creator of our experience, then it's just kind of goofy to create anything that's bad, right? It's like it's like
Like,
what
what are you thinking?
yeah. Well, exactly. What are you thinking? Because if you're thinking crap, you're going to get crap. Who wants to
Yeah,
think crap, right?
exactly, exactly, exactly.
Every adversity. It's like when I talk about goal setting, I work with companies all the time. I talk about the concept of you only live in one present moment, and the future is just a place where you set goals.
Hmm.
And the way you get those goals is by living your present moment in alignment with the goals, and those goals come to you, right?
Yes,
But
yeah.
the second you start changing this present moment and believing that you're not going to get that goal, or something comes up that seems to block the pathway to that goal, the interesting thing is that people go, "Oh, I can't get it now because that thing popped up," and I'm like, "No, keep your mind on the goal and deal
Mhm.
with what came up. You know,
Right.
it's just something that you have to deal with." And it's a
Yeah.
matter of going into your life that way too. It's the same thing with the afterlife. Is that if you live your life dreading that it's going to be, dreading what comes after death, the undiscovered
Hmm.
country, from whose born no traveler returns, right?
Yeah.
Because all we know here in the world is we watch people die and we never see them again.
Hmm.
So who's born no traveler returns? They never come back, right? And so, and the early part of that speech, he goes, "What dreams may come." What dreams may come, are they good dreams, or are they negative dreams, are they nightmares, are they, we don't know what's going to come after. What dreams may come puzzles the will.
Mm.
And so it ends up putting us in a space of what we think here and now creates what we're going to do there, but it also, what we think here and now creates the the experience of here and now.
Hmm.
And if you're not creating, if you're dreading what comes after death,
You're just going to
or
be dreading every
right.
day, every minute, every moment.
Right. Right. And that's what I think a lot of organized religion has done, is
Mhm.
they've leveraged the fear of what comes after death.
Exactly.
And you look at, you're going to burn in hell. Well, we discussed that one earlier, but Gehenna
Hmm.
being the place where you burn the trash, right? And
Yes.
Gehenna being the word they use for hell. So it's like they use it as control in a lot of forms. And the thing is, you get to choose. There's no one who can control you but you.
Hmm.
And if you're allowing some organization to control your life, then you're living to them.
Hmm.
And at some point, if that is what's happening in your life, at some point, I want you to just crack open a dictionary and read the definition of the word cult.
What
Because
is the definition? Do you know it offhand?
it basically, well, I can't say it word for word. I can look it up, but I'm not going to do that. But basically, when you read it, it says it describes religion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it literally describes religion. And on my front door, I don't know if I ever told you this. I have a note on my front door because the road that I live on is a fairly busy road, and for some reason, it's the road where the Bible thumpers like to knock on all the doors.
Okay.
So, and it got to the point where I was getting them 3 or 4 times a month,
Mm-hmm.
and so I put a sign on my front door. It says, hello. If you're here to deliver a package, please ring the doorbell. If you're a friend or a loved one who's surprising me with a visit, please ring the doorbell. If you're here to sell your product or service, but go away. I won't buy any of that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're here to get me to join your cult, I won't. So
so there. So bye-bye.
So there. And what I find really fascinating about that is I have not had a knock on my door since that sign went up.
Wow.
So the JW who show up at my house,
Mm-hmm.
Jehovah's Witnesses who show up at my house, don't even ring the doorbell anymore.
So they're identifying with the word cult, in fact.
They're identifying with the word cult. And I think that's fascinating. I had one lady who pulled in here. It was 2 cars. They pulled into my driveway. Lady got out, got her little pamphlet, walked up to my door. And I could see her because of my way my office sits. I can see them walk up to the door.
Okay.
They can't see me. And I watched her walk up to the door. I watched her stop. She didn't even step all the way up on it. She stopped and she read the note. And she turned around and ran to her car. And then freaked out trying to leave my property. She ended up driving across my grass.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was that scared.
Wow.
Of the word cult. Right.
Or maybe she thought some sort of devil worshiper lived there.
Maybe. I think I told you that when I spoke at metaphysical centers, a lot of them were in old churches that were closed down because the religions were going away, and the metaphysical centers were saying, "Hey, look, it's a perfect space for a metaphysical center." Mm-hmm. And I spoke at one that the church was still in operation downstairs, but they had converted the choir loft into the metaphysical center.
Wow, that's progressive.
And yes, except the choir loft would occasionally get vandalized with devil worshipers, and they'd write all these horrible things.
Wow.
On the metaphysical center, and they had to move out of the church because the church people were literally doing that to the people who were living for Jesus. Jesus would write that all over their wall. What would Jesus do?
Right. I don't think he'd vandalize people.
Right. Anyway, we kind of got a little bit off topic, but afterlife, I think that it is what we think it is, and I think that if that's what you think it is, that's what you're going to experience. But I think in the end, and I love going back to Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in your philosophy. We have no idea what it is. We have no concept of what's going to be after. So rather than focusing on it being a negative, let's just focus on it being a positive.
Mm-hmm. Why not?
Why not? Right?
Why not?
What were you thinking?
You get to create your experience. Make it a good one. Make it a good one. Right. Make it loving. Make it compassionate, kind, and forgiving.
Right. Or as the Steve Martin song.
Which one?
His grandmother's song. Do you know that song?
No, I don't think I do.
I'm going to sing it for you. I'm actually going to sing for you. This is Steve Martin's grandmother's song his grandmother used to sing to him all the time. Be courteous, kind, and forgiving. Be gentle and peaceful each day. Be warm and human and grateful, and have a good thing to say. Be thoughtful and trustful and childlike. Be witty and happy and wise. Be honest and love all your neighbors. Be obsequious, purple, and clairvoyant. Be pompous, obese, and eat cactus. Be dull and boring and omnipresent. Criticize things you don't know about. Be oblong and have your knees removed. Be tasteless, rude, and offensive. Live in a swamp and be three-dimensional. Put a live chicken in your underwear. Get all excited and go to a yawning festival. Thank you very much.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And
You're welcome.
I think that brings us to the end of our time together today. Thank you, listeners, for hanging in there. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on the afterlife and what you're creating for yourself in this one. So leave us a comment on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you and get to know you as you get to know us. Thank you for being here. Thank you, John, for another fabulously entertaining conversation.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be with you, Tamara.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.